So is the whole thing going?
I think so.
Okay. And if I click here, I should be able to stop recording or pause it. So that's cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get started again. Thank you
Let's
for
do this.
looking this up, by the way. This was
Oh, no
helpful.
problem.
All right, so welcome to the Sports World podcast, and we're going to be discussing the MLB daily fantasy world. And one of the things that we want to do here is Matt and I had enough time in our schedules to do a video conference and try to figure this FanDuel lineup thing out all by ourselves, and also just talk it out between ourselves and see what that does. And in the way, we might provide some tips and insights as to what goes into a daily fantasy player's routine and schedule. So in terms of this roster here, we are on Thursday, May 12th, and it's 1:30 p.m. today on the East Coast. So the lineup will lock at 7:05 p.m. As you guys can see here, the contest starts at 7:05, and we have a little over 5.5 hours to go between lock time. So a lot of the batters and stuff haven't been decided. The lineups haven't exactly been portrayed or given out, and they're all empty. So by the time it usually by 6 p.m. or so, these are filled up and everything. But we're gonna just go in with the mindset that most of these guys are playing and just roster them that way. So just bear with us in that sense. And without further ado, we'll get started. So Matt, how are you doing?
Not bad. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, and this is a fun slate. I do better if it's the early slate with 3 games because I've made a lot more money in that. Mostly because I won that $175, and that's the most I've ever won. So by default, I'm gonna make a lot of money because playing of those. But I don't mind the night sets as well because the slate is pretty interesting here. We have a really good starting pitchers going up against one another. There's a Price versus Keuchel lefty matchup in Boston tonight, and there's Kershaw is always taking the mound, so this is a fun time to roster him. And he's also taking on the Mets, so that's a potent offense when they want to be. But at pitcher, who are you looking for to roster today?
So there's kind of two schools of thought I have on this today, and it's a cash game play, which are 50-50s, versus a tournament play. And in all of my 50-50s, I will be taking Kershaw. He's pretty much for me, anytime he's available and not over 13,000, he's an automatic plug and play for my 50-50s, just due to the 80-point upside he has, as well as the pretty much he's never going to score you less than 30 unless something absolutely shocking happens. But in the tournaments, I'm looking a little bit elsewhere. He's a little too expensive for me in a tournament where I'd like to get some good bats in. I mean, look at those past numbers. That's virtually incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Ignore some spring training games where he didn't go full innings, but that is, he's the best pitcher in the game for a reason, and that's the type of safety you want in cash. But in tournaments, I'll be focusing my most of my lineups on 2 or 3 other guys, namely Vincent Velasquez and David Price. Velasquez of the Phillies and Price of the Red Sox. And those are kind of the two I want to be featuring in tournaments because they have high strikeout upside, and they're playing teams that actually strike out a lot against their handedness. So Price is a little risky against the high-powered Astros, but they have an astronomical strikeout rate. See they call him the Astro K's a lot. So we'll see how he does. What about you, Rod?
Yeah, I was looking at the K percentage as well because that's one of the major things in FanDuel and just in DraftKings as well and daily fantasy generally. The strikeouts are worth 3 points, and so at a lot of the times, like if a pitcher wins, I would rather have them throw like 15 strikeouts and not get a win if that's not going to be in the cards. But the strikeouts will help you out. And yesterday I had one of the Orioles pitchers, and he's a ground ball guy, so he only had 2 strikeouts the whole time, and he went 8 innings, but the total end score was like 38 points. And you can see where the strikeouts for 15, 16 strikeouts or
20.
like 20. This is exactly what I was gonna say. 20 strikeouts like Max Scherzer had yesterday. That would be really, really helpful, and you could easily make up the 12 points that you lose by not winning if you have a really good high strikeout pitcher. So I'd much rather get 18 strikeouts after 6 innings of work from a pitcher and not get the win versus getting 8 innings and just 2 strikeouts and the guy gets a win. But it's it's going to be half the effort and points that the other guy will get. But as you said, I was looking at the K percentages here on FanGraphs, and one of the interesting things is the Astros are up there and the Tigers are up there as well. But I think the Tigers are a little bit inflated because of the Scherzer outing last night. So that's a weird number that maybe we shouldn't target, because the Tigers play the Orioles tonight in Baltimore, and that's a hitter-friendly park, and they're coming off of the Scherzer outing where they literally got embarrassed by one man. So I expect the Tigers to rebound. So in a contrarian lineup, people are probably going to say don't bet on the Tigers. It's not a good move to go with, but I personally would be not too hesitant to roster them, even with the high strikeout rate, because their BABIP is right around where it needs to be. It's not good or bad. And their slugging percentage is one of the higher ones in the league, so they might be able to pull off a really high-scoring game tonight. But as you said, the Astros strike out a lot, so my guy for pitcher, just because I don't want to take the risk with Velasquez at 9,100, and you only have to pay $300 more. It's not like a $2,000 difference, so I'll just take Price and move on with it. Or is that... Are you happy with that?
I'm 100% for that. That was going to be my suggestion. I just want to point out one more thing about Price. As a Red Sox fan, I can't help but justify why he's actually pitching a lot better than he seems to be pitching. If you want to go back to FanGraphs, I think you'll be able to find him back up. He's had a couple rough ERA outings. He has a very high ERA.
Right, 6.75.
Yeah, it's really bad. But that said, it'll be tough to, I guess, go to his individual page. But he has a Sierra of less than 3. He has a batting average on balls in play of 373, which is the league's highest rate for a starting pitcher with the qualified innings. So he's due for some incredibly positive regression. Plus, he's got a strikeout rate of over 9, which is a pretty good sign of dominance. He's pitching well. He's getting unlucky, and teams are scoring runs off of him. And he's going to have a good season. He's going to do well. Red Sox fans, I'm one too. I'm a big one, but we need to chill out a little bit as far as questioning the signing already.
Yeah, and the ERA is a little bit sky high, but the thing that's promising is that the Z percentage swing is like how many balls in the strike zone batters swing at, and that's a high number. That's a 68,
that's a lot.
70% of the time when the ball is in the strike zones, batter will swing at it and miss it as well. And the overall swing percentage is pretty high as well for him. It's a bit lower than his dominance last year, but it's up there as well. So
also look to the right. Go back down. Swinging strike percentage, 14.1 is absolutely verging on Syndergaard, Kershaw, Scherzer territory. So he's got that there. He's pitching well. He's got some swing and miss stuff. His ERA will gradually come down as he finds his footing and puts together more quality starts.
Right.
Which he will.
Yeah, so the stats seem to check out for Price, and we're just going to roster him and move on to catchers as well. So catcher is a weird position because the first time I looked at it, Zach Greinke is going up against the Giants. He's in a hitter-friendly park named Chase Field, which is going to be his home for the next 6-7 years. And Buster Posey here, 270 batting average, 31 hits. It's a lower expectation kind of year for him because it is an even year, so he is going to be probably deep into the postseason. If they can find out how to manage Matt Cain and Jake Peavy at the back end of their rotation, because they've been pretty abysmal to say the least. But with Posey, the problem here is, as you guys can see, like in May 5th versus Colorado at home, he had a huge outing. He had a couple of RBIs and a run and a walk as well, and a double too. And against Cincinnati, the atrocious Cincinnati Reds, he had a huge night as well. But then after that, he went on this like hitting sort of slump where he put up 0 straight up across the board. And I had him a couple of those times, so it was fairly disappointing to see. But last night against Toronto, that's a tough team as well to bat against. But he did start to show some signs of improving. And the really interesting thing for me was, if you go to Buster Posey's profile on FanGraphs, his BABIP is 276, which means that's going to rise at some point, and he's not swinging the strikeout percentage isn't as high as it was during in 2011 when he was in the second year or third year of the league. And a lot of the times when a guy is slumping, something that I like to look at is how many times has the K percentage increased or not. If it's on par with the production of years past, then that means he's still seeing the ball. And if the BABIP is confirming that he's just getting unlucky, then I wouldn't really mind rostering him. But Matt, he does go up against Zach Greinke, and it's a righty-righty matchup. But do you pull the trigger on a Buster Posey at 3,400?
I wouldn't, because I think there's a better option. I really, really, really love Victor Martinez tonight.
Okay.
I think in a hitter-friendly park, he's a switch hitter. He can bat lefty. He actually bats better lefty. He's facing Ubaldo Jimenez. He's not a great pitcher. Really, that's generous. He's not a good pitcher.
Yeah.
He's hitting the ball very well right now. He's seeing the ball well. He had a great series against Washington. Actually, he was the only guy to get hits off of Scherzer, pretty much.
Yeah.
And he looks confident, and he's finding his form this season. He had a rough year last year, very injury plagued, and his price is insanely low. We all know Martinez in his prime is probably a $4,000, $4,200 player. In a hitter-friendly park against a bad pitcher, I'm not going to be playing anyone else at catcher tonight. I'll say that.
Okay. So one more devil's advocate pick. How about
Sure.
Brian McCann, who's going up against Ian Kennedy? Kennedy is having a renaissance sort of year where he's 4-2, I believe, and he has almost a 2.0 ERA, and he's also striking out guys around the amount of innings he's pitched mirror the amount of strikeouts he's had. Do you roster McCann at home against Ian Kennedy?
Sure. I don't see why not. Kennedy's not actually that good of a pitcher. He's had an incredibly low BABIP this year. It's around 260. He doesn't have the swing and miss strike percentage that he seems to at one point had. And most importantly, his home runs per fly ball is 6.7, which is almost an anomaly. It's so low. Mm-hmm. Its average is 10 to 13%, and 6.7% is due for some serious regression.
Right.
So targeting hitters against guys that just are getting lucky as pitchers is not a bad strategy. So Brian McCann checks all the boxes in my book as well.
Okay, and he's playing at Yankee Stadium, which is always
right field.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I do agree with you, and I do believe that a photo, Victor Martinez with the photo is a lot more. It's for some reason, I don't know if everyone encounters this, but whenever these guys don't have a photo, which thankfully FanDuel didn't wait for like 6 months into the season to get these guys pictures. Victor Martinez for the longest time didn't have a photo on FanDuel, and I always felt weird about rostering him. It's almost like on some human level, like if we don't see a face to what we're dealing with, like you've heard the stories, like if someone doesn't shake your hand after a huge deal or a contract that you sign, it kind of feels awkward. Like, am I getting duped over here if the guy's not shaking my hand? This is a similar psychological level of madness where I try not to roster guys that are photoless. And I've gotten screwed that way because Michael Conforto just goes off all the time, and he's photoless, and so is Victor Martinez. But now Victor with the photo is going to be on our team. So let's move on to first base, where we have Paul Goldschmidt, who had a killing of an outing all 3 times in Colorado. Look at this, 28, 18, and 18. And, I mean, he had a rough time before Colorado, but as we all know, people go to Colorado to fix whatever slump they're in. And it seems like Goldsmith's out of it. So against a guy like Johnny Cueto, who did get roughed up by the Reds a couple of days ago in a hitter-friendly ballpark, do you see what value in spending $4,500 for him?
He might do pretty well, but Cueto's pitched well this year. Goldschmidt seems a little expensive for what he get, especially when you can roster a guy like Chris Davis or even Hanley Ramirez, or even if you really want to go low, my sleeper of the day is Ryan Howard. So any of those seem like better choices for me. Brandon Moss is another one. I love Brandon Moss tonight against a righty. I think he has 7 home runs so far against right-handed pitching, and he destroys right-handed pitching. And he normally hits right in the center of the order. So any of those guys seem like a little bit better way to save your money and get maybe spend up at third base, which is probably the best position tonight.
Right. So
what do you think?
Yeah, I do agree with Ryan Howard. He was on my list, mostly because the Blair guy from the Atlanta Braves, I don't trust him one bit. but he does seem more, just the numbers here, he seems more like a ground ball pitcher, which might not be right up Howard's alley. I feel like if he's more of a ground ball pitcher, all the pitches are going to be down in the zone, which Ryan Howard, for the most part, made a career out of that back in the '08 kind of Philly era. But now he needs the ball more at the center of the plate, which Blair might not give him. So I might want to stay away from Ryan Howard. For first base, for some weird reason, I was thinking more upper level kind of guys, where Chris Davis was someone that came to mind because Mike Pelfrey is an absolute disaster, and I have no idea.
I was going to make sure you mentioned that.
Yeah, I have no idea why he's still starting. He's equivalent to Jake Peavy and Matt Cain in San Francisco. Like, it's equal level of production.
Let me find I found a little haiku today about Mike Pelfrey. When Pelfrey pitches, all tigers cry to the sky because that's where the ball is. Fly ball pitcher who gives up a ton of home runs.
So do you want to stick with the haiku and roster somebody who will put one of those balls into the air?
Yes,
hopefully
please.
multiple.
I plan on rostering as many Orioles as I can possibly fit in my lineups.
So speaking of Orioles, let's just skip to third base. Are we sure we're going to roster Manny Machado immediately? Do you want to?
There's two that I like. I like Machado and I like Carpenter because Jared Weaver is, I don't know, I've encountered this while writing my Noah Syndergaard article. Noah Syndergaard's curveball is 2 miles per hour faster than Jared Weaver's fastball. So he throws essentially change-ups down the middle. He's a strike zone pounder, and he's such a bad pitcher, but Carpenter mashes righties, so it's either Carpenter or Machado for me, but I would stick with the Orioles player.
So one sort of hesitation, I like both picks, and eventually we are going to end up with both, but one pick for me is Travis Shaw, who we both love now. Obviously, you love him because you're a Red Sox fan, but look at these numbers out. The last 2 outings were both against lefties, and he had a home run, 5 RBIs on the May 10th, and yesterday, May 11th, he had a 21-point night, and the really interesting thing about, let me see, I have it pulled up here, his splits from lefty-righty, he's only been in the league since 2015, so this is his second year, and but look at this, he's a lefty himself, bats left here, and versus lefty, he has an average of 329, and you would think the lefty-righty one would be better, but it's not, it's only 243. And it's not even like plate appearances are the issue here because they're roughly equivalent. Like he's seen as many lefties as he's seen righties for the most part. So it's a larger sample size, and we just can't say that he's worse against righties yet. But that's the way it's unfolding. So do you see the point in rostering Travis Shaw over a guy like Manny Machado or Matt Carpenter?
In a GPP like this, you can justify a lot of things, especially when he's probably going to be very lowly owned because of those two expensive players. So that would be a solid pick. I would be all for that. I mean, look at his last 2 games. Look what he's done against lefties. He, as you said, the sample size is there. He hits lefties well, which is a little unusual for a lefty. The only other one I can think of, other than in his small sample size, Jackie Bradley Jr., is Mauer. Joe Mauer is a career better hitter against lefty pitching as a lefty than righty pitching. So we'll see if that trend continues, but it's just it's hard to pass up the top 2 for me. But honestly, I'd be okay with Shaw completely. Whatever you're feeling.
Yeah. So do you have any hesitancy at putting him up against Keuchel, because Keuchel hasn't been himself lately, and he's away from Houston, which is like literally the home away splits for Dallas Keuchel are atrocious. Like he's 100 times better at home than he is on the road. Even last year during the Cy Young campaign, he was remarkably worse on the road than he was in Houston. So away from home, hitter's ballpark, hits well against lefties. The one thing that's really makes me hesitate is that he might have one of those off nights, and he might put up a 0 while Manny Machado or Matt Carpenter might have a killing out there. And there's other positions where we can make up ground, but if Machado goes off, we don't have anything that Shaw can do with 0 points. And there's no other, there's very rare to find guys in the outfield or shortstop or second base, which are the remaining positions, that can fill up a production of a Manny Machado. So I feel like we are better off going with Manny, and he is a 359 hitter this season. He's matched 10 home runs, and this is a little bit of a positive positive hitting output from him. So hopefully he'll put up more of the 54 night outing than the 9.2 outing. So let's go with Machado and move on to second base.
I like that.
So
one more thing about Keuchel, he's tough on lefties too.
Yeah.
So it just seems like a little bit better situation to go with Machado, especially since he's not the $5,000 player he was about a week and a half ago.
Mm-hmm. So for second baseman, I have my top three choices were Dustin Pedroia, Chase Utley, and Jose Altuve, but it depended on if we picked Keuchel up against. So we really can't have Altuve because David Price is going up against him, and we don't need the two to cancel each other out. So let's just stick with Utley. What are the flaws in this choice?
With Utley?
Yeah.
I assume he'll probably bat leadoff or second, as he's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's a flaw. The main flaw is that he's not a home run hitter, and that's really what you want to look for in tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Guys who you know can hit a home run at least one, and he's more of a contact, singles, get on the base pass, score type player.
Yeah.
And Bartolo Colon's been solid and pretty good contact limiter this year, which is something I can't believe I'm saying because he's 42, almost 43 now.
Yeah.
But I would go, if we can afford him, this is again kind of a tough one. My choice would be Pedroia.
Okay.
But he's expensive. Almost $4,000 is a lot to pay for a second baseman.
Uh-huh.
But he's probably the best choice, which is why I'm not super opposed to Utley. But another guy to look at for cheaper is Hernandez.
Cesar Hernandez of the Phillies? Yeah.
I don't know how you feel. He's been in a bit of a rough streak, but Braves pitching will end the rough streaks a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's another guy who he doesn't have a ton of pop, but he has a lot of base stealing ability. He hasn't quite shown it because he hasn't been on base as much, but he's actually very quick. He's good on the base paths. So that's another thing you look for in tournaments.
Okay.
But,
so at some point, another thing is bankroll management. At some point, we are going to have to start cutting costs, and it's probably going to be shortstop in the outfield. Are you okay with rostering Pedroia at $4,000 because that will only give us $2,500 to disperse amongst the last four positions? I feel like that's a good trade-off to make.
I actually am okay with that. I have
Okay.
quite a few low-priced outfielders that I really like tonight.
Okay, so then we can just attack the outfield and maybe even pick up a decent shortstop as well. Like, if we had a lower-tiered pitcher, I would have gone with Xander Bogaerts as well.
Yeah.
Because, again, against lefties, Keuchel...
Guy's a monster.
Yeah, in Boston, it's not gonna end well for Keuchel. And the thing for Boston is the first inning is really important for them. If they can get off to like a 3-run lead, the rest it's basically a double-digit night. If they have 3 or more runs in the first inning, so one of the ways they do build up those three-run leads in the first is Mookie Betts gets on base, and then Xander Bogaerts knocks him into third, and then Bogaerts steals a base while Pedroia takes an at-bat, and then whoever is fourth, usually it's Big Papi, but sometimes now it's Hanley Ramirez, they just hit a home run, and there you go, 3 runs. So if that's the kind of Boston offense we're going to see tonight, and they have been on a double-digit scoring output for the last 3 games against the Athletics, I feel like we're going to be in good hands. So do you want to go with Bogaerts and maybe just... Ooh, that's not going to work.
It's not going to work.
Yeah.
I was going to stop you because it's just we don't have enough.
Yeah.
Purely just don't have enough.
So another option for me was Jonathan Villar against James Shields. So Villar is one of those guys that is a switch hitter, and he does tend to get on base quite often, but his main strength is stealing bases. So he stole 2 bases a couple days ago against Miami, and that led to a 31-point outing. So shortstop's one of those positions where we can get away with not having a power hitter, but just some speed devil who can grab a couple of bases. So Jonathan Villar is someone I'm looking at, but who are your choice?
Well, he was the top choice for me. Someone a little bit more contrarian, Brandon Crawford.
Uh-huh.
He's hitting a lefty-righty matchup. I know Greinke's a phenomenal pitcher, which is the only reason I'm not all over him tonight.
Yeah.
But he's good. Crawford mashes righties. He's in a hitter's park. He's hitting the ball well. He's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
But that said, if I was going to pick, I'm with you. I think VR is the best option just due to his high upside from stealing bases.
Okay. What if VR has a 3-point night again and can't get on base, and Crawford has the home run potential? Because that's what we're sacrificing by not having Crawford. Is Crawford has 4 home runs and VR
Yeah,
has, I think, 0 or 1 home run.
he hit one night, but the difference, the other thing, like that's one way to look at it, but the other way to look at it is Zach Greinke has his normal dominant self. No one gets on base. Crawford doesn't even have a chance.
That's true.
And so there's always positives and there's always negatives.
Hmm.
But I think the most likely scenario of someone doing well is VR. One of
Okay.
those two.
So let's just stick with VR, especially because this game shields in the Padres.
Yeah,
For
he
some
can.
reason, yeah.
And VR can bat lefty. He actually bats better from the left side. And Shield is getting raked by lefties so far this season. And they're just killing him. And we'll see. He
Yeah.
can probably do it again.
So one thing before we get to the outfield, let's check the weather and see what's going on. So seems like clear all around. The Philly Atlanta game might have a little bit of rain around right around the end of it. I would say
Good
at 10
reason to
p.m.
avoid Velasquez.
Yeah. So good thing we avoided Velasquez because but by 9 p.m. I don't think Velasquez is even gonna be in the game. Like they might just be onto the bullpen. So
Yeah.
we never know. But anything stand out to you, particularly weather-wise? There is a wind in Milwaukee, so if they leave the roof open, that's another bonus for our guy VR
Yeah, that's true. Another one, wind's blowing out to left field at Camden Yards today. I
in
don't know if it's
Baltimore.
on here, but
Yeah, it is. 7
yeah,
miles an
so
hour.
that'll help our righty hitters, which I'm about to choose one of,
Okay.
and make sure that we put him in our lineup.
Okay. So who is that guy then? Let's move on.
Adam Jones. He's finding his footing. One of
Yeah.
my favorite hitters. I don't like the Orioles, but I like Adam Jones a lot. He's 2,600, which is just absurdly low for a player of his quality. He's had a rough season, but the last couple games, I think he's hit at least one home run.
Hmm.
But he's finding the ball, and Mike Pelfrey is like me and you on the mound, throwing down the middle, batting practice, home run derby.
Yeah.
So I don't see any reason that for 2,600 he shouldn't be in our lineup
Okay.
with a wind blowing out the left as well.
Hmm.
What do you think?
I like it. Yeah. Do you want to go with Jackie Bradley Jr. as well? No, but that can't work, right? Because salary reasons.
He's in a couple of my lineups just based on how much I love him and how he's been hitting.
Hmm.
But who are your other outfielders you're thinking of?
Yeah, so one of the guy is the one I have pulled up, Aaron Gordon. He has been flying
Alex?
under the radar, but he's been very, very consistent. And at a low cost like this, we don't know who we can really get. That's going to be a sure thing. But if there's a guy that can hit a home run or drive guys in, or just be on base, as evidenced by the 16 runs and the 15 walks, I might want to just pull the trigger with Alex Gordon, and that will leave us at I believe 2,200. So we would already be down here, and
That's perfect for my player.
yeah. So if we're down here, then one guy that I was maybe targeting, not Carl Crawford, even though I want to, but it's probably going to be Chris Owings, who does do decently recently, because look, it's not going to be a huge outing for him, obviously, but he is going to face Johnny Cueto, who's a righty, and Owings himself is a righty, so this might be somewhere to look at. But is there anybody else that you have on your mind?
There is, and I've played in the last 2 nights. I plan on doing it again. Chris Young. He's again a Red Sox outfielder facing another lefty. He is as much of a lefty masher as Ryan Rayburn. He's had 2 very good games. There's no reason to think he'll not have another one. He's hitting in the heart of the Red Sox order in an offense that's putting up 13 runs a game. For 2,100, I love it. He's got a lot of power upside as well.
Mm-hmm. So Chris Young seems like a good matchup, and we do have $100 remaining. Do you feel like we got every position we wanted? I feel like we did. We didn't really
I
have to.
actually do too.
Yeah, we
I
didn't
had not
have to.
considered Alex Gordon,
Yeah.
and I really like him. Actually, looking at it, I hadn't crossed my mind.
Mhm.
I think who's Uvalde pitching? Yeah.
Yeah. Another guy who likes to throw straight down the strike zone.
I was gonna say he's a strike zone pounder.
Yeah.
He does have some pretty good velocity, but again, he's not shown much this year. Gordon's a lefty, right? Yeah. And he's getting hit pretty hard by lefties.
Yeah, and look at this. Like even last
Like
night,
Shields.
the game was like 7-10, I believe, or a couple nights ago. Like
Yeah.
he's putting up 9 points, and
He gets
his
on
team.
base.
Yeah, he gets on base and his team is scoring a lot. So that means at some point he's gonna have to hit a home run or add to the scoring, because that on the one hand is unsustainable. But if they do need to sustain it, Alex Gordon is a guy that will hit a couple of home runs to help them out. And it's not like he's sitting on one home run; he does have three. So that is
He's
more
also,
than what we would expect out of a $2,600 guy.
exactly. He has had a good year last year. He was a little injury prone, but he does have power.
Mm-hmm.
And for 2,600, I had, again, good call on this. I had not even looked his way, but I like that pick.
Yeah.
I feel like we've put together. I'm trying to think if there's anywhere else we can improve, but I don't really think so.
Yeah, because now if we try to improve, we're gonna just end up shuttling the
Tinker.
guys that we do like, and it's just not gonna
Yep.
be a good idea. So unless there is a lineup issue where, like, let's say Jonathan VR decides to sit tonight, or Adam Jones is a no-go,
Yep.
we're gonna roster each of these guys and keep it the way it is. And the other thing is the weather is probably not going to cause an issue with any of these games, so that's a good thing. Where a lot of the times what will happen is we will make this roster at 2 p.m. and then all of a sudden we can't do much else because it started raining in Baltimore or something of that nature. So we are going to make sure that the lineups remain unchanged, but if there is a weather issue, then by like 7 p.m. we would make the obvious changes. But for the most part, this is the way that the roster is going to stay. And if we have the time tomorrow, we'll do one of these again and update you guys as to how this roster in particular did. So, Matt, unless you have any other qualms about this roster, I'm going to hit save and move on.
Let's do it.
Let's do it then. So, we've saved the roster now, and as you guys can see, we will update it tomorrow. And it is the 10K single entry lineup. So, we're just competing against other folks that have a single entry, so it's not a multi-entry thing where we could end up getting, shuttled out of the way because some guy decided to throw 100 entries and they all went off. So it's gonna be a good night, I think, for both of us, Matt, and from just in terms of daily fantasy. And so thank you all for joining in, and have a good rest of the night. That was only 30